Murray. Thank you very much for joining me today. You're Senior Vice President EMEA for the International Well Building Institute. Could you tell me a little bit about the Institute and your job and what it entails?
Sure. So the IWBI, the International Well Building Institute, is an organization that was founded to be the guardians of the well building standard, which were released back in 2014. So my job as Senior Vice President at this point is to sort of help the EMEA region become aware of the well building standard, to understand all the different products that we offer. So we are really helping our clients go from post-pandemic, getting their buildings back in order, and also understanding what do they do at this juncture. And when you look at the EMEA region, we're over 42 countries. So our job really is to kind of engage with the local audiences, help understand what are the sustainability rating systems that are in these various countries, and how can well align with those. Because obviously our biggest and strongest message is people and planet. So we want to be able to ensure that projects and developments around the world are taking sustainability really important, but also understanding that the health of the people inside the building is absolutely paramount.
So you mentioned people there. So according to your website, the standard is it's a vehicle for buildings and organisations to deliver more thoughtful and intentional spaces. I feel that for too long we've looked at buildings more from an aesthetics and the form of the building and less about people. But has that pendulum swung? I think that are people now realising the asset value and it's more focused on the occupants of the building?
I definitely think the pendulum is swinging very strongly towards people, and the reason that I say that is probably even back in 2014 when we launched the Well Building Standard. It was at the time that the UK Green Building Council was really focusing on the people aspect and understanding that the cost of people inside a building is as high as 90% and our energy costs can be as low as 2%. And as important as it is to focus on that 2%, we're missing a really wide and large opportunity to impact the people in the building through the design, operation, and human resources. And I love what you said about the fact that we're spending all of our time looking at the design aesthetic, but we're not looking at people-focused spaces and really understanding that when people do spend upwards of 90-95% inside buildings, there has to be a human impact or a health impact to that enclosure. So we need to be looking at daylight, we need to be looking at ventilation, we need to be looking at the impact of space on mental health. So I think that pendulum has swung, and it's post-pandemic, it's swinging larger than it's ever swung, and I think we're really seeing a focus now about getting people back to buildings with the focus on how they interact with spaces.
Interesting, you mentioned the pandemic. So how's people's views on health and well-being changed over the last 2 years?
It's been a massive shift. Prior to the pandemic, we saw very innovative developers and occupiers, landlords looking at well as an opportunity to differentiate their space. Post-pandemic or even mid-pandemic, we had the highest registrations of buildings within well because people automatically started to realize that health and well-being element is not a nice to have, it's absolutely critical. And I think the focus on the pandemic has made us very aware of the fact that buildings have been designed in a way to produce energy efficient outcomes, but very often that energy efficient outcome comes at the expense of health. So reduced ventilation is an energy efficient way of operating a building, but really doesn't deploy a healthy internal environment. So I definitely feel that our folks are really starting to see that there's an overwhelming push to place health and well-being as a absolute integral way of designing and developing space so that we can actually bring people back to the spaces that we love.
I do feel that the industry has been a little bit sort of over-focused on sort of thermal performance, and I think we are I think we've created the unintended consequences of overheating buildings, poor ventilation and unhealthy buildings. So I do hope that pendulum is now swinging that back.
I definitely agree that that's happening, and there's other elements that are starting to come into play. For the first time, the Well Building Standard was one of the first building rating systems that talked about mind as a concept. And we now understand that people coming back from the pandemic have been exposed to multiple stress levels from the environments that they're working in. So what we're really understanding is the value of things like biophilic design, greenery, views to the outdoors, access to nature. These are parts of designing a space that have a huge positive impact beyond just energy efficiency when we're looking at a space.
A key market for Well is clearly the workplace. I think over the last 2 years, the view and opinions on the workplace, I think, has gone through a bit of a roller coaster of changes. I think there was times probably 18 months ago when everyone was assuming that workplace is gone and that where everyone's going to be working from home. I'm a strong believer that there is a place for a workplace. I think people join companies to, they do want to go back to the office. I think there's some logistical challenges of how we get people back. But I feel that the modern office environment has changed. How's that sort of sitting within Well, and how are you seeing that the place for workplace has moved on?
It's a great question. I think it's on, where will workplace be in the next 6 months, 10 months is going to be absolutely on the tip of everybody's discussion point. I believe that you're absolutely correct. 18 months ago, people were like happy to be home, no more commuting. Now, I think today we're seeing that companies want to get back to work. They realize that there's a massive social bit that's missing from the isolation that people are working from home. And if we want to really bring people back and bring them back to an environment that they want to come to, which makes it worthwhile to get on the train and to meet with their colleagues, I think Well is going to be an absolute component of that. We want to encourage spaces to be well day-lit, have the fantastic ventilation so people feel safe. We want to be able to provide, healthy food and give people understandings of the fact that moving in a space is really critical. So our Well concepts, I think, have never been more important than they are today to welcoming people back and making that office space a place that they're attracted to and interesting to return to.
We're here at Future Build. You're chairing a session at the event, and the session's entitled Bringing Health, Safety, Performance and Equity to the Built Environment. Synopsis states, the IWBI understands that the spaces around us can make everyone, everywhere, healthier, happier and more productive, but it can't be making these spaces work for us by relying on certification. I understand the IWBI, you've created a rating system. Can you explain a little bit more about how the rating system works?
Yeah, absolutely. So the rating systems, the first rating system was called the Health Safety Rating, and that was a direct output of our COVID task force, which were around 600 of the most, informed real estate professionals and medical professionals coming together right at the beginning of the COVID pandemic to say, look, we need to understand where our customers are. At the moment, they're not all occupying buildings. They have no major developments in the pipeline because they're all working from home. So how can we design a select subset of features that deal specifically with the reopening of that building? So the health safety rating is a much more condensed set of features, maximum 20 where you only need to meet 15, and they are directly related to reopening a building. So they'll deal with things like emergency preparedness programs, health and safety cleaning protocols, air and water cleanliness protocols. So it allowed us to design a set of features that's directly applicable to what our client is going through right now. On the back of that, we are now releasing 2 brand new ratings, which is called the Well Performance Rating, which is dealing with sort of the indoor censored environment and post-occupancy evaluation. So how can we help clients better understand their real-time awareness of their space? And the next one that we'll be delivering is the Health Equity Rating, which allows our clients to focus on equity, inclusion, and diversity. Again, a small subset of features from the Well Building Standard that help our clients meet them where they are at the moment.
You mentioned post-occupancy and monitoring. I think this is critical, and I think almost for too long we were creating buildings, handing them over, and then using the buildings and actually not monitoring against actually what the goal and the brief was to sort of set out. Are you seeing a sort of more, a better understanding of the importance of post-occupancy monitoring?
Absolutely, and I think the post-occupancy requirements like Leesman survey or the BUS survey that Arup works with, I think we're seeing multiple tools coming out into the market that helps us understand in real time, like how are folks experiencing the space. But I'm now seeing a real importance and driver with real-time data capture. People really want to know if the air quality is meeting the Well requirements when they come back to that space. So I think we're seeing a dual approach now where the people are able to kind of give us their immediate feedback. You'll see multiple apps coming out on post-occupancy evaluation. but it's definitely being married with more of the real-time data capturing and censored environments.
One final question. As mentioned, we're at Future Build.
Yes.
So looking to the future, if there was one thing that people take away from the show with a mind on the future, what would you like that to be?
I guess for me, companies, stakeholders, occupiers, businesses should not think they need to have a massive program of refurbishment or a brand new building to start their well journey. One of the key learning options that we've taken away from the pandemic is that we are an organization that wants to build a long-term relationship with clients and take them on a well journey. It's not about an end goal of a single certification. It's about creating an opportunity where we can help our clients meet them where they are and be able to help them go from a baby step in well, like a rating system, through a certification, through maybe a portfolio-wide relationship, and help them with their commitments both to their staff, to their investors, through ESG reporting. So we see this now as a real long-term building of a relationship and not just a single certification at the output.
I know I said that was going to be my last question, but I'm going to ask you one more.
Go ahead.
So if we're looking at the sort of being able to take the smaller steps, I assume this now opens it up to much more existing buildings rather than new, because creating new buildings and sustainable, healthy new buildings is relatively easy. Managing our existing building stock is obviously more complex. By being able to have the smaller steps, surely this makes existing buildings easier.
Absolutely, and you know, we are on the sustainability journey like every other company. We want to see the existing assets in this world addressed, and that's 80% of our stock. So the Well Portfolio is one of our programs that actually is completely focused on getting those existing buildings to a platform and a foundation where they can improve their well score over time. So yeah, rating systems, Well Portfolio, Well for organizations, it's really about building that long-term commitment and never thinking it just has to be ready for a new project or a new development.
Anne-Marie, thank you very much.
You're very welcome. It was a pleasure and great to be back at Future Build.
We hope you found this video from Fabric useful. For more, don't forget to subscribe, browse our playlists, and please like or share this video. Thanks for watching.